Lift tall through your spine. Turn your eye gaze low or close your eyes. And then as you notice, as you come to your breath, I'll ask you to do one thing different. Maybe it's turn the hands up instead of down. Or maybe it's extend the legs out in front rather than crossed. Like try something different. And then stay with your breath. And we'll kind of play with that throughout class today. Like, is there one thing once you get into the pose, you think, all right, this is the picture, this is where I'm at. Just allowing ourselves one more thing, whether it's an extra breath or it's realizing I don't need to be as deep in this pose as I've gone, just something. Continue to ask yourself throughout this practice. Fold your palms together now, thumbs to the sternum, and tuck the chin down to the chest as a way of giving yourself gratitude for coming to the mat today, for creating the space, the time, the energy to practice. Then you can release the hands back down and start to just rock the chin from side to side. Left ear to the left shoulder, right ear to the right shoulder, just kind of making these half moon shapes. And then keep the chin down to the chest. Take both hands behind your head and give a little press of the head into the hands. We get a light stretch from the top of the spine down to the tailbone. And bring strength into the front side of the body. Belly button back to the spine. I start this way a lot, just a memory, coming back in, restarting practice. Where is that origin point? And you can release the hands, lift the head, and open your eyes. Cool. Walk the right hand over to the side here and stretch the other hand overhead. And then keep the bottom hand, but take the top hand back to your waist. And then can you open the chest just a little bit more, like look up towards the sky. And I realize when I do that, I've walked my hand out too far. And so that's the thing I need to change to make that a little more doable. A few breaths. And then come back to neutral. And do it to the other side. Like first walk out really far and take the other hand overhead. Good long stretch. Think from like waistline all the way to the top fingertips. And then I'm going to bring the top hand down, probably back off on the bottom hand a little bit, and add a twist. Rotate the spine, look a little bit up. In class today, we'll be playing with those kinds of two different movements, the length and the open lift of the chest, a little bit of twist. Okay, and then back to neutral. Walk the hands out in front of you and just fold over. And as much as we explore back bends today, we'll get these counter poses of forward folds and bends. Okay, come on back up. Take a straddle position with your legs. I don't expect this to be like the best straddle ever. Your body is cold, probably warming up. So be good to yourself. Flex your feet, point the toes straight up. Push the heels down into the ground. And then walk your hands, stay on fingertips, just walk yourself forward. And it can be even just a little bit until you start to feel a stretch on your inner thighs. Another way to do this, if you're particularly tight on those inner thighs, is to have a bend in the knees and still walk forward. And then bring it back to your neutral. Hands on either side of the right leg and walk it over. Walk it far enough that the opposite side of your seat, like your left butt cheek, comes up off of the ground a little bit. And then come back in and over to the other side and walk it over a little bit. And for me, that little lift, now on the right side, is giving our bodies, our pelvis, the range of motion and the flexibility to have some movement. We don't want it to get stuck. Come back to the center and then go forward again. Maybe now it's just like a little bit further, but still keep the feet flexed and the toes pointed straight up towards the sky. And come all the way in. Grab hold of your outer thighs and change over to all fours. Cat and cow pose. So if you're looking in the hub and you're looking down to where I have all of the recorded classes for Level Up, I tell you what each class of the month is going to be about. Today is more of a back bend focus, working ourselves towards camel pose, Ustrasana. We'll do lots of support, lots of good chest, shoulder opening to get us towards that point. So just cat and cow here. And then do downward facing dog. Tuck the toes and lift the hips. And then down dog, pedal your feet. Lift up to the tips of your toes and take your feet as wide as your yoga mat. And then scoot your feet back a little longer than your regular downward facing dog, so a longer stride. And bend your knees. As you bend your knees, push your hands down and forward, lift your seat higher up. Knees are bent, but full stretch and lengthen the spine here. Try to lift a little bit underneath your upper arm bones so you keep a hollowing in your armpits. And then with the heels still lifted, straighten the legs again. Ever so slowly, press the heels back and down. Think long, reach back, and then down towards the yoga mat. And lower your knees down. Okay, I think we did this last week too. Take the hands out about 6 inches ahead of wherever you had them. And now press your hips back towards child's pose. When you do that, you should end up with your seat still up in the air a little bit, off of your heels. So a little more focused stretch in the shoulder and sides of the waist. And then come back up and walk the hands over to the right side. And do that again from there. Press back. And then come on back up, walk the hands across the center all the way over to the left side. So you're a little more stretched out. You're starting from a lifted position and then pull back. Seat still a little lifted from your heels. So the focus really is on stretching the length, sides of the waist, sides of the torso, and strengthening in the shoulder girdle. Okay, come back to your center. And one more time to downward facing dog. Do a nice bend in the knees and walk forward. Walk up to the front of your yoga mat. Place the hands to your waist, point your elbows to the sky, push down into your feet and come all the way up to standing. Lift the arms. And then exhale and release the arms down by your side and give everything a little bit of a shake. Okay, just take the hands out and turn the palms up. Good. Can you bend the elbows a little bit here? And then put your mind's eye into the base of your shoulders, the base of the shoulder blades, like the wings on your back, and try to squeeze in. Squeeze in. And at the same time, broaden tops of the shoulders. Wide across the collarbone. Squeeze the glutes. Sometimes that kind of helps you. And center of the body strong. Navel back towards the spine. Belly button into the back. Let it go. Reach the arms all the way up. And then exhale, forward fold. Step back to plank position, the top of your push-up. And everybody lower your knees down to the ground. So plank position from the knees. That same action, squeeze the tips of the shoulder blades in and let your heart sink down. And then puff up, a little bit of rounding. So some teachers will say floss your shoulder blades. Squeeze the tips of the shoulder blades in. Feel like your chest is falling down and then lift out of that. And do that a couple of times. Floss and lift. Floss and lift. And then we'll just lie flat down onto the mat. Stretch your arms back behind you. Turn the palms to face up to the sky. And lift everything that you can up away from the mat. Lift, lift, lift. Squeeze the heels strong in and keep lifting. Lower it down. Push back to child's pose. Give it a breath. And then change to downward facing dog. Tuck the toes and lift the hips. Step your right foot forward to a low lunge. Take your time, get into your full stride. And then revolved lunge. Take the right hand up. And can you take your right arm overhead, like past the front of your mat? Now bring your right hand to the inside of your foot and spin the back heel down. Down dog lunge. Walk your hands out towards the front corner of the mat. Put some pressure into the hands. Like you would in downward facing dog, you press down and forward to try to get the weight into the back leg. And bring the hands around the front foot again and step it all the way backwards, down dog. And let's give it a go on the second side. Left foot forward. I've forgotten to mention, make sure you're looking for that one little bit, maybe a little change from how you usually line up. Maybe it's just feet like wider apart right now. Why not? Try it out. Left arm to the sky. Good. Take the left arm overhead. Give it a little extra reach. See where the shoulders respond to you there. And then hand to the inside of your foot. Spin the back heel down. One way to do this different would be take your hands to your waist. Make sure that you've got that firm footing in the back leg. And then reach your hands out and slowly down. Okay, walk your hands around the front foot. Let's step forward this time, both feet to the front of the mat. Come up halfway, hands can go to the thighs to give you lots of room for this stretch. If hands feel good on the thighs and you want a little more stretch through the hamstrings, take it further. Take your hands down to your shins. And then everyone forward fold, nice bend in the knees, fold the spine over. Stand up, reach the arms to the sky. And bring palms together, center of the chest. Breath in. And breath out. Okay, let's keep going here. Lift the arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Half lift. Step back to plank. This time, lower flat on down. Keep the hands where they are, right underneath the shoulders, sides of the chest. Cobra, press down through the hands, down through your feet, and lift the chest up. So in Cobra, keep the front of your pelvis down on the ground, definitely your thighs on the ground, and shrug your shoulders for a moment up to your ears. It should feel a little funny, but it gets us into a long side body. We want to keep that length from our hips to our shoulders, but move the shoulders back so they're out of our way. Just squeeze tips of the shoulder blades. Maybe a little more pressure into the hands. always keep squeezing the glutes strong. We want our legs strong, back of the body strong when we do back bends. And then lower it all the way down. Press to child's pose so your back gets to round in the opposite direction for a breath. And then do downward facing dog. Another round of lunges. Bring the right foot forward, and this time come all the way upright, arms to the sky. So high lunge here. Do this for me for a moment. The back leg, bend the knee, and drop tailbone straight down. It might feel like a little bit of a tuck, a little bit of a curl. Tailbone straight down, more firm in the abdomen. And then can you keep as much of that as possible, but go for a straighter back leg again. Starts to really get us this solid stretch through the front of the thigh, hip flexor there. That's good stuff for us in these back bends. And then fold over your front thigh and add a twist. Palms together, twist your left elbow towards the right. Maybe hook it across your leg. And then unwind, both hands down, step it all the way backwards. Let's do those two things on the second side. So left foot forward, take your time, get your long stride, and then come on up. Arms to the sky. Take a little bend in the back knee, and think tailbone straight down. And I know that when that's happened, I get a big stretch coming up from the front of my thigh to the front of the hip. And then I'm keeping that as much as possible, but stretching the legs straight again. Press through the back heel. Fold it forward, belly down onto your thigh, palms together, and add the twist. Right elbow to the outside of the left knee. Great, untwist. Set the hands down, and again, step forward. Half lift. Forward fold. Stand up, reach the arms to the sky, and bring palms together, center of the chest. Couple of breaths here. Release the hands, give the whole body a little bit of a shake. And then take a wide stance on your mat. You can face either way, doesn't matter, but take a wide stance and turn your toes out. Bend your knees. With your hands, try to help your thighs stay open, your knees stay open over the center of your feet. So that might mean like a slightly more narrow stance, not sitting as low, staying up a little bit higher. Try to keep those knees open. And palms together here, so we're hovering. And just like we did in our lunge before, instead of butt back, think butt down towards the floor. And then do just tiny, tiny little bounce or movement. Like almost so I can't see it on the video. Okay, take your arms out like goddess pose or goal posts. Squeeze the tips of the shoulder blades in towards each other. That might drop your elbows and make them droop more towards your sides. But at the same time, think of your hands expanding out in either direction. So it's this kind of like push and pull if you were doing it in a big way, but it's just little. Yes. Okay, I'm gonna go over just to one side and take the hands down. Nice stretch through the inner thigh. You could turn the toes more parallel back to the front. And then walk it over to the other side. So you're bending the knee that the hands go towards and trying to make the other leg straight. And you can just kind of play with the feet, how much they're turned in or turned out. We're asking for a stretch in the inner thigh. Abduction, which we don't get a lot of in our yoga practice. And then come back to the center and turn your toes parallel and head down, head towards the ground, fingertips on the ground. Here, you can have a bend in the knees to make it easier to reach fingers to the floor, or go for straighter legs. If you're going for straight legs, it's really a tightening around the kneecap, like a firming of the muscles around the bone. And same thing in your thighs, quads, hamstrings. Okay, hands to the hips, press down into your feet, and come slowly up. Heel toe, heel toe, heel toe. Stand with your feet about hip distance apart. So this may seem like sort of a odd thing, but I just want us to practice a little bit of looking up and looking forward. For me in camel pose, that's the trickiest thing, is like not getting dizzy. Yeah? So we're going to practice, and it's the reason that I don't like to do like standing back bends, because that doesn't feel good in my body. But I know that if I can do it really slowly and concentrated, it works a little better. So I'm going to take the hands to the hips, try it with me, and squeeze your elbows in, so that you can press your thumbs and that little crease on either side, center low back. And then push the thumbs a little bit forward, so your hips move a little bit forward. You can start to get a stretch down the front of the thighs. And then I'm just going to look to where the wall and ceiling meet one another. And kind of judge for a couple of breaths. How does that feel? Okay, think of double chin. Pull your chin in. And then take from your shoulders to the crown of your head and look more up. So it's not just your eyes or the top of your head that changes, but like the whole unit from your shoulders to the top of the head that moves more up and back. And then maybe that's the stop point. I've got my butt really squeezed here tight to hold me strong. Or you try to go one more little ratchet so that you're really looking straight up at the sky. And then I know I'm going to take each step, each rung of the ladder to come out so that it still feels safe. Here, and then wall and ceiling meet one another, and then back to neutral. And then just as slowly bend your knees and take the arms out for chair pose, fierce pose, Utkatasana. And then slowly set the belly down to the thighs, hands to the floor. I'm still keeping my eye gaze a little bit ahead of me so that I don't have that rush of dizziness, and go for straighter legs. And then finally, drop the head. So you have all of those like stop-gap points to know where you should be. And walk it all the way back to downward facing dog. So we'll play with that eye gaze change a couple of times here. Lift the right leg up into the air, three-legged dog. Pull the knee into the chest, hover forward in plank pose, and step the foot through to your low lunge. Lower your back knee to the ground. If you're on harder ground, you might want to fold your mat in half so you're not worried about the cushion in the back knee. Hands to the waist and come upright. And we're going to do the same thing, but from this lunge. Squeeze the hips in towards each other, a little bit down and forward. And pull your eye gaze up to where the wall and ceiling meet one another. Thumbs can come find that little space in the low back. Squeeze the elbows in. And then double chin. And then go further up. Look towards the ceiling more. Maybe that's the stop point. Or one more time up. Still chin pulled in, so that you're moving from a unit, from the shoulders to the top of the head. And then go a little bit up, wall and ceiling. Look straight ahead. Once you're straight ahead, lift the arms to the sky for Anjaneyasana. And we'll add a twist. Look to the right, take the left arm across the front thigh and a little twist. And back up. Lower the hands around the front foot. Give it a pause. And then lift the back knee up. And step all the way back to downward facing dog. Good. Let's see it on the second side. Lift the left leg up and back. And pull the knee into the chest. Take your time to step it forward, get your length. And then it's from that full stride that you take the back knee down. Squeeze front heel back, back knee forward. So your legs feel really strong, and take your hands up to the front thigh. Keeping the foundation of the legs strong, belly strong, take the hands to the waist. Squeeze the elbows in so it contracts tips of the shoulder blades in, broadens across the shoulders. And do those same points. Look straight ahead. Bus stop 1. Bus stop 2, look up to where the wall and ceiling meet one another. Right? So you kind of like stay at that bus stop for as long as works. And then you go again, look a little bit higher, and it's from that double chin position. And think move from the shoulders to the crown of the head to look even higher. And then take each bus stop, we got to pick everybody up to come back to neutral. Once you get to neutral, arms to the sky. And take the twist, right elbow across the left side. All right, both arms to the sky. We're rocking and rolling here, hands down. Sit it back to child's pose. So knees wide, big toes together, sit all the way back. Maybe form like a little pillow with your hands to set the forehead into. And give it a couple of breaths. Roll up to a seat, sit back on your heels, and take your knees together. So I'm sitting flat on my feet, knees together. I actually need this a little bit apart. So knees a little bit apart. which means your feet are going to be a little bit apart. I can place probably like 1 or 2 fists in between the feet. And then kind of round forward. This is our first look at Ustrasana today. We're going to hold on to our heels. And then holding onto your heels, and it doesn't have to be a lot, it's just that the hands are kind of connected to your heels. Think of lifting the torso up and go from the ground to lift the hips higher. Remember that double chin, pull it in, look to wall and ceiling, look up a little bit more. And then start to sit down, and as you sit down, your eye gaze will naturally change to be a little bit more forward. Stay neutral in Virasana. And then change this completely to sit down onto your bum again and stretch your legs out in front of you. Okay, pull the right foot back like you're in tree pose, and then just lean over your extended leg. Now come back upright and point your right knee back up to the sky, so you're stamped your foot down. Notice here, how close can you get your heel to your seat? So we're going to try to clamp it in a little bit further so you've fully closed this knee joint. Yeah? And then lift your arms up. Push so much into that right foot to see if you can change one thing to get your right side of your butt a little bit lifted from the ground. Can you push so much into the right foot that you can lift up higher? Keep trying to do that and fold over. Reach again. Try to hold on to your left leg. Hold on to the foot if it's there for you. And then let it go and release, right leg out. Okay, so then the second side, you do the tree pose kind of action again. And this first pose is like where I want us to concentrate on getting a bit of a stretch on that extended leg, on the hamstring of the right leg here. Okay. And then come back up. So I'm doing that because when I do seated forward folds, I think every single time I need that pose to stretch my hamstring. But it's really not the focus of the next pose. So you've already gotten it, you've done it, right? And so then we're gonna change and work on a different action. Sole of the left foot down. Pull the heel as tight in as you can to your seat, so that I've got some space between my seat and the ground already. But then as you lift your hands up, can you get even a little bit more height? Up, up, up. And then keep as much of that height and length as possible and reach forward. And keep pushing down into your left foot. And then come out of the pose and stretch both legs out in front of you. If you're like me, I get a little catch in the hip flexor there, and so soles of the feet together, fold over a bit. Might feel like a nice little counter stretch here. A little more of that abduction. Okay, bring the knees in. Let's come up to standing. Do just a little bit more standing. So come all the way up. Stand at the front of your yoga mat. Reach the arms to the sky. Get that full front body stretch. So nice, so good. Hands can go back to the waist. Keep your right foot forward. Step your left foot back. And then wherever you are in the hips, we're going to change that one thing by lifting up a little bit taller and then rotate the back heel down. Warrior two, sit back lower. Flip the palms up, reach the right hand as high as you can. And take that back hand to your left thigh, your back thigh. Like squeeze around the thigh. And take it higher up and a little bit back. Remembering those little incremental stages. And then change, right elbow to the thigh. Keep the left hand at the waist and turn and look up towards the sky. So remember that very first warm-up where we had the hand overhead and then we took the hand down to the waist? I want you to try to mirror that first opening. Hand at the waist and you're twisting across the torso and ribs. And look back down at your front foot and find your way to plank position. Lower all the way down to the mat. Bend both knees. As you bend the knees, take the feet together, but the knees can stay apart. Okay, like you're going up to the top of a push-up, press down in your hands and straighten the arms. Your pelvis is going to come up to you. It's not a back bend yet. It's like a knees down push-up, knees together, feet, knees apart, feet together. Then from here, think of those stop points, those bus stops in our gaze. So I want you to look more straight ahead, and that might take the pelvis a little more down and forward. As you look higher up, try to squeeze the tips of the shoulder blades in. Still think of the double chins so that you're taking from the shoulders to the top of the head to keep looking further up. To take the eye gaze back towards neutral, lower the body down. Lower the legs. And then we all find downward facing dog. Just take your time, find downward facing dog. Okay, second side, bring your left foot forward to your lunge, however you want to get it there. Maybe it's a little something different than normal. Get your left foot forward and come up to your high lunge, arms to the sky. Remember, we're trying to lift our hips higher up here, less bend in the front knee, and then rotate the hips open, back heel down. Warrior two, drop the arms out and start to go a little lower in the legs. Awesome. So reverse warrior, sun warrior, flip the palms up, take the left hand, and use your back hand. Let it help you. Squeeze around your back thigh. I can very much notice if I'm not using that back hand, I have much less leverage. As if the hand is a prop, like push into your leg, push your leg into the hand, and let that give you a little bit more back bend. And then nice and slow, bus stops of the eyes, elbow down to the knee, and stretch the top arm overhead. And then change, hand goes back to the waist so that we can really just focus. Waist to shoulder, On the twist and the opening, look back up. Look down at the ground, find plank position. And then exhale and lower flat down onto the mat, all the way down again, all the way down. Okay, pick up your right leg, extend back and set it back down. Pick up your left leg, extend back, set it back down. We will do this on both sides, so if you need to go to the other side first, that's fine in terms of like maybe where you can see the camera. Extend your right arm out in front of you, and then I want you to lie onto your right side. And again, if you need to go the other side first so that it's easier to see and understand what we're doing, that's fine. Okay, remember like something like flamingo pose. Kick your left heel, the top leg, heel back towards your seat, and try to reach that same hand back to hold on. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot balance, and so I'm just gonna kick that front leg a little bit more forward. And then push your foot into your hand. So it's like drawing back on a bow and arrow. Push back. And let it come back into the center. Lower the leg. Come onto your belly and go to the second side. I'm probably not doing this justice in terms of my words explaining it. So it's like a one-legged bow pose. Lay on the second side and kick the feet forward so that you have a little more balance, and then the top heel towards your butt. Take that same hand, hold on to the front of the ankle. You could prop yourself up on the head if that works better for you. And then kick your foot back. We're trying to avoid the knee going up to the sky. You want the knee to stay focused towards the back of your yoga mat. And then release. And again, lie back down onto your belly. Okay, and then we're gonna do full bow pose. Bend both knees. Reach your hands back. Hold on to the front of your feet. And if your hands do not reach your feet here, pretend that they do. Just keep reaching the hands back. To change one thing, spread your toes and then do everything that you can to lift up away from your mat. Imagine that you are levitating. Lift, lift, lift. If you're taking big breaths, it might rock you a little bit forward and back. And then lower, 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 lower down. Release the legs. Push back to child's pose. And we'll do a little threaded child's pose. Take the right arm under the left. So kind of thread the needle with the arms. And I'm sitting back in child's pose. And then take the right arm out in front of you and do that twisted or threaded child's pose on the second side, left arm under. And take it back out. Okay, come all the way up to kneeling. Okay, in kneeling, Make sure that you are not worried about your knees. So like if you need a double fold of your mat or a blanket underneath the knees so that the thing that you're thinking about is not the hardness of the floor, do that. Okay? And then the second thing, if you have a yoga block or something similar that you can use here, we want that. And we're going to use the block in between our thighs. My block is pretty skinny, and I'm going to use the skinniest side that I can and put it into your upper inner thighs and squeeze in. If you don't have a yoga block, but you had something that you could squeeze into your upper inner thighs, that works. Also, just the action and thought of it. Go soles of your feet, top of the feet, I should say, top of the feet to the mat rather than the tuck of the toes. And then take your hands, your thumbs to that little crease in the mid-low back. Squeeze your elbows in. So this is all what we've already done. We've just got the extra add of the squeeze. Puff up your chest and look to where the wall and ceiling meet one another. Keep squeezing your elbows in, and then couple double chins so it's pulled back. You keep the double chins, and from the shoulder to the crown of the head, look up. And then as if you're dipping the crown of the head further back, but still keeping the chin in, you look even further back. Squeeze around your yoga block. Slowly come out, step by step by step. Take each of those steps. And then I usually just need to sit back on the heels and take a couple of breaths to let it even out. If you're like, wow, that yoga block really made a difference for me, I feel very safe and secure, and you want to keep using it, you may. Of course, you may. We'll progress without the yoga block. So if you want to set it aside, set it aside. And then come back up to kneeling. Tuck the toes. So now your heels are a little closer than they are if your feet are flat on the ground, but you have to do a little bit more work to engage and keep the strength in your inner thighs because you no longer have your shins against the ground to do that for you. So you have to keep going adduction now, squeeze the inner thighs towards each other. Okay, let's put our thumbs. I said mid to low back. That's not the case at all. It's low back. It's where the top of your tailbone meets the lordotic spine. And those little notches. Squeeze the elbows in. Stretch from your knees up to the top of the head. And then look to where the wall and ceiling meet each other. Chin back and in. Keep pushing the thighs slightly forward and take your gaze a little bit higher. And we know now that that's that whole unit from your shoulder girdle, top of the shoulder, to the top of the head that's moving together. We've done a little twist here, so you can twist a little bit to the side and reach one hand to your heel. And then try to twist a little bit to the other side to reach the second hand to the heel. With both hands on your heels, your chest is back towards the center. Remember, double chin. Look up but not back. And take all the same bus stops. So that means hands have to come up first. And then slowly back to your neutral. Sit down onto the heels and take a few breaths. All right, I come from a line of yoga teachers that always did Ustrasana in threes, so I'm doing that for us. That means we have one more to go in this set. Come back up to your kneeling position, block or no block. You could go tuck the toes with the heels up again. If you're looking for even more bend, more practice, top of the feet. Now your heel is lower, and so there's more back bend, yeah? So you get to choose. Here's what we're gonna do on this last one though. Push your butt back halfway down, twist to one side, and grab hold of that one heel. Re-lift the hips. Look down at your back heel, lift, 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 and push through your thighs. And then come halfway back down. Spin over to the other side. Very matrix-like. Hold on to your other heel. Keep looking down. Lift your hips back up. Forward. And then go back halfway down and spin to your center. Now you get to choose, do you like the halfway down position to come into the pose? Or do you like coming into the pose from all the way up? That's your one more thing. And do one more Ustrasana, one more camel pose. Remember the bus stops to use in terms of the opening across the chest. Carefully come out of the pose and sit back on your heels in your hero pose. And then fold over into child's pose. And then as you're ready, downward facing dog. Stretch it all the way out. Pigeon pose, bring the right knee behind the right wrist, walk the left leg out, and try to sit upright. So lift the torso here. So kind of mirroring where this pose continues on. Can you take your hands to your waist? If you're like, no, Betsy, I need the ground, keep your hands on the ground. But then is there anything that you can do to make your legs a little stronger? Squeeze in like you're still holding onto that yoga block that we did in camel pose to make it easier to take the hands off the ground. The direction of the spine as this pose continues to progress is up and back into a back bend. So it's that same back as camel pose. And then find your way back to downward facing dog. And give it a go on the second side. Left knee to the left wrist, heel towards the right. If you're all tired of this by now, you could be down and forward and just giving your hips a good stretch. But again, it's the work right now, if you're willing, to stay upright in the pose. Legs squeeze in so that the hands can come to the waist. And I'm pushing my back knee down into my yoga mat a lot here. You could also tuck the back toes to help that fire a little more. So strong hamstrings. Okay, very last downward facing dog for today's practice. Stretch it out, paddle the feet. Lower your knees and do a little cat and cow. So my early morning class on Thursdays, the Triple B class. I know early morning is too early for many of you. You can always do it on the recording. Tomorrow's Triple B is focused on both shoulder strength and mobility. We do use a little bit of resistance training. It's not as scary as some think. It's just a different way to move that'll help with all these back bends. Okay, let's have a full seat on the mat. Stretch your legs out in front of you. Actually, soles of the feet to the mat, and take your feet as wide as your yoga mat. Hands right on the front of your shins and just pull yourself a little bit up and through. Nice work today. Camel pose is on the bottom of my list of poses that I like. So you don't see me teach it very much. Hands behind you. And just take the knees from side to side. Release, release through the psoas. But we've all got to do things that we don't always love, right? And some of you might have loved that today. That's one reason we do it. Okay, lay down onto your back. Have the feet just slightly wider than the hips. And that's like in that do one thing different. That's something I've been doing different lately. Like, can I make bridge pose, and therefore as I practice, even fuller back bends, can I make those things a little more accessible for myself? And I've noticed if I take my feet like an inch wider than I used to, voila, a little bit more open. So one thing different. And then bridge pose. Press down into your feet, shoulders, head, lift the hips up. And even do you need to turn your toes out slightly? And we were working on some strengthening of both abduction and adduction. So with the feet slightly turned out, I've got a little more stability, and that still works, and I find the room. So don't be afraid to play in your asana, in your postures. What works for me might be different than you, and all across the way, right? So much the same, so much different. Lower it down. Pull the knees into your chest. Give yourself a good squeeze. And then set your left foot down, cross your right ankle over, point your knee out to the side. In that figure 4 shape, pull the left leg in. Enjoy your stretch. We're winding down here. Second side, cross the left ankle over. Pull the right leg in. And friends, next Thursday, of course, Thanksgiving. We will have class on Wednesday, so this class on Wednesday next week. But there are no classes on Thursday or Friday live. You have plenty of recordings. All right, take both feet back down. And then just stretch the arms overhead. Maybe a quick little hamstring stretch. Take one leg up and then the other one. Any last little bits of movement that would feel good to you, add them in. This is your time to unwind. And then from that unwinding, go to stillness. If you have a wall open or a chair, a bed, legs up the wall is a good one today after the practice. You could always flip your legs up the wall. Regular Shavasana. That full typical Shavasana, arms, legs extended, belly up. Helps to reinforce that message of open flow of energy. Sometimes that feels a little overwhelming to me after a back bend practice. And so I actually flip over, belly down sometimes. I'll stop talking, but do what feels right. You're welcome to stay here a little longer. For those that are ready, add in a little more movement. Connect breath and body together. And take your time to come back to a seated position. Bring your palms together, thumbs to your sternum. Just give yourself full thanks for taking the time for yourself for this practice. To get focus and a bit of challenge through the movement. To be open enough to try. As a way of sending forth sort of the lessons on our mat into the rest of the day, we'll sing the sound of Om. You're welcome to sing along. You are welcome to listen. And you are also welcome to tune it out. Empty out the breath. And then take a breath in. And from the light in me, I bow and honor that same in you. Namaste.